Hi, welcome to Trisect Institute. Today we will be discussing NTM examination second semester BTech paper for the subject Introduction to Programming. Although this question paper contains 7 questions, you are required to attempt any 5 questions in your examination. However, today we will be discussing all of the questions along with their parts. Our first question is, what is the difference between flowchart and algorithm? For this particular question, first you are required to give the definition of both algorithm and flowchart. Then, coming to the difference, our flowchart uses symbols to show the flow of control. However, algorithm uses simple language. Then, flowchart uses arrows to show the next step. However, algorithm shows the procedure step by step using sequence numbers. Other than these differences, you can also give example in this particular question. Then now, moving to another question, explain what is the difference between continue and break statement with examples. So here, first you need to explain what continue and break statement means. So break statement is used to break the loop without checking the condition of loop. However, continue statement forces the compiler to continue the loop without executing lines next to continue statement. Let's understand both of these statements using examples. So first we see for the break statement. So here I have for loop. Then in for loop I have if condition which checks whenever I is equals to 2 we have to break or say come out of this particular loop. So this particular piece of code will execute for i's value equals to 0 and 1 only. Similarly, if we see the same code for continue statement, if I replace this break statement with continue over here, what will happen? This particular piece of code will execute for 0, 1, 3, 4 and 5, and when i's value will be equal to 2, it will just simply skip that particular condition and pass the control to the beginning of the loop. Now let's move on to the next question. The next question is define function, differentiate between the call by value and call by reference. First, what is function? So function is a module, or you can say it is a subprogram. It is a subprogram which we give input and it does some computation and produces some output. Now let's see the difference between call by value and call by reference. If function is called by value, then that means we are using dummy parameters for evaluation. However, if call by reference is used, then that means we are using actual parameters for the evaluation. So in call by value, changes are reflected in dummy parameters, not in actual parameters. However, in call by reference, changes are reflected in actual parameters only. Then we have another question, explain briefly all the storage classes. So we have 4 storage classes. Auto, which is used for the local variables. Then we have register, when we want to store our values, our local variables in register instead of CPU. Then we have static, which is used for the global variables. Then we have extern, which is a reference to a global variable. For more details, you can refer book or over the internet. The next question is, what is pointer? So pointer is a special variable that is used to store the address of another variable. Then array of pointers. Array of pointers is a collection of addresses. Then let's have a look at the example. So here in the main method, I have declared array of pointers which store addresses of 3 locations. So what I am doing over here is, in array 0, I have stored the address of variable I. In 1, I have stored the address of variable j. At array location 2, I have stored the address of k. Now we move on to another question. So question 2, first part is differentiate between linker and loader. So here first you need to define what is linking. So our compiler generates the object files from the source files. Now to link these files, we need a linker which resolves the references in the process and generates the executable or a library for future use. We have two types of linking, static linking and dynamic linking. For further information, you can refer the book. Then we have loader. A loader is actually a part of the operating system and not the compiler. As its name implies, it is responsible for copying the executable file generated by linking into memory and performing any preparatory tasks. Now we move on to another question. Explain briefly compilation and execution process of a program. So the compilation and execution process of C can be divided into multiple steps. So first step is pre-processing. It uses a preprocessor program to convert C source code in expanded source code. Hash includes and hash defines statements will be processed and replaced over here. Then second step that we have is compilation. In this step, we use a compiler program to convert C expanded source code to assembly source code. Then another step is assembly. It uses an assembler program to convert assembly source code to object code. Then we have linking. It uses a linker program to convert object code to executable code. Multiple units of object codes are linked together in this step. Then lastly we have loading. It uses a loader program to load executable code into CPU for execution. Then the last question that we have is write a program in C to find the smallest of three numbers A, B, C. So here is a program to find the smallest of three numbers. So here first I have declared three variables n1, n2, n3. Then printf statement is asking the user to enter three numbers. Scanf is taking the three numbers. Then we have a logic to calculate the smallest number. And this particular code will give us the smallest number out of the three numbers. Then moving on to another question, explain all the operators arithmetic, unary, relational, logical, conditional and assignment used in C language. Also write a C program to implement arithmetic and conditional operators. For this particular question, you can refer the book or you can look up over the internet. Now next question is write a program to differentiate between do while and for loop. Provide an example to support your explanation. First, we will be discussing do while loop. Here is the syntax of do while loop. In do while loop, at first, codes inside body of do is executed. Then the test expression is checked. If it is true, codes inside body of do are executed again and the process continues until test expression becomes false. Now let's see an example to see how do while loop works. This piece of code will execute till I value is less than 5. So it will execute for i's value as 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Then we have for loop. Here is a syntax for for loop. The initialization statement is executed only once at the beginning of the for loop. Then the test expression is checked by the program. If the test expression is false, for loop is terminated. But if test expression is true, then the code inside body of for loop is executed and then increment or decrement is executed. This process continues until test expression is false. Here is an example showing the working of for loop. Here in for loop, first I have initialization, then I have checking condition and then increment expression. This particular piece of code will output 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 on the screen. Now we move on to the next question. So the question is define array. How to calculate the address of array element. An array is defined as a collection of similar elements. These similar elements could be all ints, all floats or all chars. Now to calculate the address of an array element, we have the following formula where AI is the array element whose address has to be calculated. B is the base address of an array. W is the size of each element. I is the location for which address has to be calculated and LB is the lower bound of the array. Now next question is write a C program to indicate the implementation of 2D array. The following program shows the implementation of 2D array. Here first we have declared a 2D array which will contain 2 rows and 3 columns and have assigned some values to them. Then we have outer loop which will be executed for rows and then we have inner loop which will be executed for columns. And then we are printing the values. Next question is write a function using pointer to exchange the value stored in two locations in the memory. For this question, we define a swap function to exchange the value stored at two memory locations. We have passed the variables using reference, that is, we have passed the address of the variables. Now we move on to question 5. Here the first part is explain briefly the difference between structure and union and provide an example. So structure is a user-defined data type that stores multiple values of same or different data types under a single name. However, in memory, the entire structure variable is stored in sequence. Union is also a user-defined data type like structure, which is used to store multiple values of same or different data types under a single name. However, in memory, union variables are stored in common memory location. For example of structure and union, you can refer the book or look up over the internet. Next question is, how does structure differ from array? Write a C program to implement array of structure. Firstly, array is a collection of similar elements, that is, it contains homogeneous data items. However, structure is a collection of dissimilar elements, that is, it contains non-homogeneous data types. Another difference is, an array cannot contain a structure within itself. However, a structure can contain array within itself. Element of structures are accessed using dot operator with structure reference name. However, arrays are accessed using the index number. So here is a program to show the implementation of array of structure. So here first we have a student structure in which we have two variables, ID and name. Then in the main method, we have declared array of structure which will store the record for two students. Then we have assigned the record values for the record 1 and record 2. Then, using the for loop, we have printed the values for both the records on the screen. Now we move on to question 6, where we have to find the errors in each of the parts and specify the reasons for those errors. So in the first part, there is an error. Then in the next part, also there is an error. In the third part, also there is an error. The 7 should be placed in single quotes. Then in fourth part, there is no error. Then in fifth part, there is an error. Hello should be written in double quotes. Then in sixth part also there is an error. Now we move on to another question. Differentiate between if-else and switch case statement. The structure of if-else statement looks like this. So if the condition inside the if clause is true, then the statements inside this if body are executed. Otherwise, the statements in the else part are executed. Switch case statement has the following syntax. It gives you the option to test your condition for the range of values for your variable. For further information, you can refer to the book or look over the internet. Now we move on to the next question. In the first part, you have been given the declaration and you have to tell for the following statements that which one is legal and which one is not. So for the first statement, it is a illegal statement. Then the next one is a legal statement. Then the third one is also a legal statement. Then the fourth one is also an illegal statement. And then the last one is also an illegal statement. For the details, you can refer the book or look over the internet. Now the next question is, what do you know about sequential random access files? What are the functions to access these files? So sequential access files allow reading the data from the file in sequential manner, which means that data can only be read in sequence. However, random access files allow reading data from any location in the file. To achieve this purpose, C defines a set of functions to manipulate the position of the file pointer. For further details, you can look up the book or refer the internet. Then the last question is, explain the various storage classes and provide an example to explain these storage classes. This question we have already discussed earlier in this paper, so you can refer to that question again. So with this, we finished discussing the end-term examination paper. I hope this discussion will help you to attempt your questions in your examination and would help you to write the appropriate answers.